Um, and let me let in these last few people right now, and I'll just keep checking this, and letting people in. But happy Wednesday. I always feel honored anyone's going to spend their Wednesday evening with me for, an hour. So thank you for, coming tonight. Tonight, we're going to get right into it. Last night, Eric covered everything about in the gym. Tonight, everything is going to be related to the kitchen. How not just the meat and potatoes, which everyone thinks is like your calories, your macros, and how much you should be, eating. But really, I want to talk to you about our philosophy and why we feel like this is, and I hate to use this word, but it is a superior approach. And that is to get away from my fitness pal. And I know that can rock some feathers because I was a macro tracker, but you're going to see by the end of this night that you're going to learn about our meals over macros, structured flexibility, where eventually you have what we call a meal card, and how it has become such a freeing thing for me. Because if there's one thing I take pride in is that I really, really live the LBC way. From the time I found Eric in 2006, I have embraced every aspect of it, and we have changed and shifted things over time based on the things that I live. Because if it's not sustainable for me, well, then how can I sit here and say it's sustainable for you? I see coaches all the time that will say, I have the most sustainable approach, and they've got 20 pounds to lose. Then it's not a sustainable approach. And then they'll say things like, well, I just had a bad year. I've had 10 multiple bad years. I don't allow that to get in the way of making this a lifestyle. And if it's a macro tracking world, it's not going to be sustainable for you. So, but a lot of us then we don't want the macro tracking. And so then we think we need to be intuitively eating, right? And the thing is, you have to earn intuitive eating, meaning you have already needed to go through the phase of weighing and measuring your food. How do you know how much to eat if you don't even first have a barometer, a gauge to base that on? Now it almost becomes a joke with, people that have weighed their food for so long. It's like, you can like throw it in there and go, whoa, right on 85 grams or 150 grams. That's not luck. That's because you've had lots and lots of repetition. So you have to earn it. And obviously, we all want to get to a place that you can intuitively eat. But in order to really, have this lean body, there's going to be intention involved. You have to have intention. So, okay, if you're new here, I mean, I think that there's a lot of people that have been around for a long time and so they know us. So I don't have to go through my whole spiel. However, I said to Eric last night, I hope you like mention some of just, like where you've come from. A lot of people didn't know that Eric was, the head nutritionist for the hydroxy, for Muscle Tech and did all those hydroxy cut transformations. But, I've been coaching females, not online for 20 years, but 20 years, first starting with like personal training and then group coaching. I had I would call it online coaching. However, it was in my local town where I was helping women with their nutrition and, training. Then I found Eric. And, through this, like I said, it was my own experience. I lost 90 pounds. I started at 230 pounds and, did Weight Watchers first. That was like my gateway. That was my first food, strategy. And I honestly love the fact that, what, we didn't label foods good and bad. People can dog on Weight Watchers a lot, but I didn't have that issue with Weight Watchers. But I lost the weight that way, but I can't say that that was going to get me to maintain it. From Weight Watchers, I went to meal plans where I hired a coach that gave me an actual, just here's the meal plan because I didn't want to think about it, but then that was making me have major binges, like I was so restrictive. And then I did, like Body for Life, where I would like have like a menu for the week that was like pretty much the same old thing. And then and I'll binge on, Sunday. And then Sunday it would kind of bleed into Saturday. And, you know, all this disordered eating. Then I got after the meal plan and just being so restrictive there, macro tracking was, I was excited. I was excited to finally have the freedom to eat what I wanted, right? And kind of just build it the way I want. But I found over time I was obsessive. I found over time I was constantly like, we didn't have my fitness pal when I got into it. I think it was called like food day or something like that, where I would go put all my food in, but I was constantly in there. And macros, while it did give me a freedom from not being buckled into a meal plan, honestly, it hurt my eating more. I had more disordered food thoughts, more disordered food behaviors. I was buying weird crap, like stuff that it was not nutritious. It was just because I could have it, right? And and then above all of that, I was just constantly like the decisions around food were all day long because when you're a macro tracker, it's essentially meal to meal. So you're always thinking about food. So even if you want to get away from it, you really can't. So through this, I created our food sub calculator for LBC. When I started working with Eric right away, I was like, I have some food issues. I'm coming from some pretty crazy macro tracking, like yikes. So I showed him what I had been doing with my clients. It was a food sub calculator. We're going to show you that tonight. And then from there, I created a cookbook, teaching people just really how to kind of sub things in and out really simply, and then through it, I've gone through a lot of hard times. So I've really proven that it is a strategy and it is a lifestyle and a way of living that you can do it through even the hard times. It does not take much more effort after you get the initial stuff done. So the problem with daily macro tracking is it isn't forever sustainable. And this is why I say daily. I'm not saying on occasion, when I travel, I'm macro tracking. Like I'm not able to do these meal cards, but that is way less exhausting than doing this day in and day out. And in fact, we may be able to use your MyFitnessPal journal, diary, maybe chronometer, whatever, to build your initial diet that we're going to build tonight based on that, and then show you how to get rid of the app. Okay. Because you don't want to be counting calories for the rest of your life. It's not a sustainable approach. It's one of the first things that people want to let go of on the other side of dieting. And it is one of the first things when a hard day comes that just goes out the window. And so we need to have already some easier strategies, in place. Let me just keep letting some people in. And I will check the chat from time to time, but I want to stay on as much as I can. So the myth with macro tracking, daily macro tracking is, oh, I'll just, I can just eat healthy and figure it out. I'll track for a while and then I can just eat intuitively. And it really doesn't work that way as well. It has sustainable eating. You have to know how much you're eating to some degree. Now, it's not to say that at the end of this, on the other side of dieting, like dinners, there's many times I'm not weighing my food anymore, but I will be. I mean, I just want to be always honest with you. I really can't stand when coaches are sugarcoating, like, it's so easy. Now, it's not complicated. And it's easier as you shift your identity becoming this person. I mean, I've been doing this now for 22 years. I will say the first 10 years were a real struggle for me because I really hadn't learned to have a healthy relationship with food. So while on the outside I looked like I was this way, I was a hot mess inside. And that was a lot of just like this food obsession and constantly needing to make decisions around food and then cheating on my diet. And so, you know, it doesn't mean you want to go completely away from having structure. People that are afraid of this, of weighing out their food and think it's too obsessive. I'm the opposite. I have taught my children from young age, when I got cancer and I needed to make sure I was eating enough, being on chemo and not being hungry, I had to force food and I wanted to know the data of what I was eating. So I still weighed my food. So my children have never seen the food scale as, say, like a restricting dieting thing. It's more like we want to be accurate, and accuracy comes this way of knowing what we're inputting into our body. No different than when, you'd want to know like a dosage of medication. You wouldn't be like, just whatever, give me whatever, I'll take it. It's like, no, it's based on your weight. Same thing here. The amount of food we consume, it's based on, how much we weigh, and having too much of that is going to leave us with excess adipose tissue, in a deficit, losing that adipose tissue. I don't even call it fat with my kids, so they kind of just see it differently. But anyways, then there's like the random eating versus structured flexibility. Random eating, again, is like you don't have a plan. You're kind of just like winging it. You think you're doing okay. You've got not only inconsistent meal timing, but you have inconsistent portions. So there's no structure to the setup of like, I'm eating at 8 a.m., I'm eating at like 12. And I say within reason, I'm eating at 4 and then I'm eating at like 7. No, you're kind of like, okay, maybe this day I'm having something. So your ghrelin and leptin, I know Eric talked about it a little bit last night, but he's really going to cover it tomorrow, is really it becomes dysregulated, right? Because you have all this random eating. Versus structured flexibility is you're going to have regular go-to meals. Tonight we're going to set up like your blueprint. It's like your dream day. In a dream day, what would you be eating, right? And you're not going to eventually need to do the daily tracking with the macros because we're going to set up meal cards throughout it. It allows you to have easy meal swaps. Don't want to have chicken tonight, want to have beef. Very simple swap, not needing to go right back to MyFitnessPal and recalculate everything because you got to hit these certain numbers. And then, your eating does become, it's a lot less effort. It becomes way more sustainable. So I already kind of covered that. So tonight I'm going to show you what an LBC meal template looks like, what they look like for our clients, what they look like for people in Look Like You Train. We're then going to go through step by step. I linked it in the chat. You're going to see it's a Google Drive. You're going to be able to download that, but I'm going to go through it live and we're going to set up your initial diet. Okay. We'll then set up your ideal day. I'm going to teach you how to use the food sub calculator, and then we'll create a couple meal cards. How does that sound? Good? Everybody here to learn a lot? How many of you use MyFitnessPal on a regular basis? Tell me in the chat. Like, I want to know how many of you are still, like it's like your default in terms of tracking. Now watch, we don't have like any, I've been good in my messaging and getting you away from it, but I'd be curious. Never used it. Oh, great. Okay, macro tracker. Yeah, so let's first start with what our meal templates are like. So we are not a big believer in just giving you macros. One, if you are working with a coach and they are charging you to set your macros, and that is their capacity of coaching you through a diet, like you do not have a coach. Like the initial diet, the initial setup, especially the initial macros, takes little to no time. You're going to see tonight how quickly we set up your diet. It's the template, it's this blueprint that really is going to take some people a little bit of time. Now, our clients, we set a training day template and an off day nutrition template. This does not mean that you need to have two templates, but since we have training, obviously we have a post-workout meal that we like to implement. And then you'll see on training days, and what I'm going to teach you tonight, that our training days favor a bit more carbohydrates because we're using that as fuel, and you are going to want that, for training. On your off days, optional, not a necessary thing, but we tend to shift it, and you'll see a little bit more fats on those days. The variety is nice, but by all means, like you could just stick to one and we'd be fine with that. Okay. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like. Now, this is always going to be based on the client's desires and likes. Now, what you're seeing here just looks like a bunch of numbers. And I think a lot of people have a hard time then seeing this as like a lifestyle because this does look like numbers. And you're right. I'm showing you this and we initially give this, and this is super important because the data does matter. I'm not a big, like anyone that says that you can't get there without tracking macros, I'd be like, well, how then? Because you do have to know how much you're eating, but it's more about creating this initial template and then getting away from that through the meal card. So like this client here, she, wanted coffee creamer in there. We made sure we built that in. She wants to have yogurt with this special coconut oatmeal on her off day. We built that in. I basically asked her what were her top three, proteins and carbs and fats, and started to build that based on that. Then from there, we will show you how we made more, more subs and things like that. Hold on, let me let a couple more people in. All right. Okay, so for this part, I'm going to go through this part quickly because we are then going to do it together in the worksheet. But tonight we are going to set up our calories. Moving forward, just so if you don't have like a little bit of nutrition 101, I'm sure you do. If you're a macro tracker, you definitely know that a gram of protein equals 4 calories, a gram of carbohydrates equal 4 calories, and a gram of fat is 9. You're going to see why we need this later as you set up your diet, okay? So we always say, before you can really test the deficit, you need to know where your maintenance is. Because if someone says, well, you just need to be in a caloric deficit, you're like, okay, that's great, but where is that? What's the number for that? So first we need to find your maintenance. And your maintenance is roughly going to be 14 to 15 times body weight. You can quickly get your calculator out and do the math. And if that freaks you out, it is a high chance that you have been grossly under eating. Remember that that is the amount of calories that you would need to maintain. So like mine might be a little bit higher. So I'm eating almost 2,200 right now. It's 2,190 and I weigh 141. So I'm actually eating at 15.5 and I'm pretty much holding steady here. Okay. Now, if you've been under eating, you are most likely metabolically adapted, but this is why we are going to do this first step in testing the deficit at 11 times body weight. Okay. So checking your maintenance, you would just do your weight times 15. And now if you've been dieting for an extended period of time, don't be surprised if you maintain closer to like 14 times body weight. That's just down-regulated metabolism that you over time would build that up. The first time I took a dieting break, I think I was like well, when I hired Eric, I was eating like 1,200 calories a day and scared to even eat anymore because I would gain. And so he immediately started reversing me. And, I was basically maintaining around like 1,300 calories. So it was a slow climb up, but you have to know where your maintenance is. Okay. From there, and so people are like, well, why? Like, why do I even need to maintain at that high amount? And we're really big on, pushing this, encouraging this is because, well, one, I mean, metabolic health markers, if you are, very unhealthy internally, like your hormones are dysregulated, you are going to be, you have a lower BMR, let's say that you have less muscle, all of those things factor into, this, your basal metabolic rate, right? But besides health reasons, like let's just take that out of the equation because tonight I'm really trying to teach you about like consistency and why our method makes it more consistent is it's easier to diet. The higher that you can maintain on means that when you make that deduction, that, 30 to 35% reduction, it's not like you're eating like a bird. When I maintain at 2,200, I can cut at 1,700, just do a 500 calorie deduction. And 1,700 is a lot more doable and manageable than say 1,200, right? So we always say that a deficit calorie range is going to be 10 to 12 times body weight. Obviously, wanting to have a range, you know, um, we like to do the test here in the middle, but if it was me personally after doing several rounds of dieting and I already know where I am successful, I would probably actually start at 12 at the higher end because I'm trying to hold on to as much muscle as I possibly can while losing fat. But for the sake of testing where your body is, we're going to show you and teach you how to start it at 11 times body weight. Now, if you are, morbidly obese, you have more body fat, therefore more regulatory hormone protection. And so you can have a little bit of a more aggressive, deficit. So, and obviously a lot of times it's just really hard to eat all the food. I mean, let's say you weigh, let's just say you weigh 250 pounds to eat times, 11, whoops, you're already eating 2,750. Like that can be tough, right? So you can lower that a little bit and feel free to ask in the chat, or you can even chat me privately if you have questions about that and I can help you because it's more about, I don't want to just ask, like give out ranges of weight. It's relative to your height as well. Like I've had people like, send me your pictures. Let me see. I can give you some guidelines. Okay. So let's say Sally is 150 pounds and we know that her deficit calories would be anywhere from 1,500 to 1,800 because that's to 10 to 12. But like I said, we are going to start right in the middle because, starting on the low end, while yeah, you'll initially probably see a little bit faster fat loss, like you really have no place to go from there. Not to mention, hunger levels are going to be higher. People tend to not bring that into play. And that is a huge part of it. When hunger increases, it is harder to comply. It just is. Okay. Then from there, we're going to add in fish oil. I'm going to show you how to do this later, but what I did want to show you with the label, not all fish oils are created equal. So this is the first thing after you set your calories is you're going to set your fish oil because there are calories in your fish oil and it's just easier to get it out of the way in the beginning. You will want to add a combination of the EPA, A, and it needs to be in the range of 1.8 to 3.0. So that would be, or, like 1,800 to 3,000. So if we look down on this label here, you can see that in one serving, two soft gels, there's 1,400, right? So we're still not at the 1,800. So we already know that one serving is not enough. We're going to need to add another serving. So 4 soft gels, 30 calories, and that will hit 2,800, so on the top end range. So you're just going to keep this in mind. And the reason why I wanted to show you this label is some people just go by the first fish oil they see, and they don't realize in order to hit that, range, they're going to have like 8 fish oil capsules. So yeah, you paid, $20 for 150 capsules, but you're going to have 10 in one day. So just be aware of that when you are looking for that. And you're going to see in the notes that I have that, okay? Then from there, we're going to add in the protein. And for the sake of teaching you and keeping it super, super simple, we are actually going to take your body weight times 1. But typically, the research and the data shows that you want to set your protein intake anywhere from 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, okay? If you happen to, have, again, more weight to lose, you can do it more based on your goal weight, or your lean body mass. Again, it can be a little bit lower. And then from there, we fill in the rest. Okay. I'm going to show you how we do that. But, like I said, we have 2 templates that we build a training day template and an off day template. And on our training day, we favor those carbohydrates. We want to make sure that they are surrounding our training and that we are fueling our training. We are certainly not going to be training fasted. Like we are there to build muscle, right? So we are making sure that we are fueling typically pre-workout, making sure you have some protein, post-workout protein and carbs. And they just play a critical role. I mean, you do not want to be someone that thinks you need to be doing keto, or needing to go low carb, Fats, same thing here. Fats, I think if you were raised like in my generation, with the baby boomers being our parents and Snackwell's cookies becoming all the craze, fat was a fear. I was scared of fat. Like I was even scared of fat, I think, even when I hired like Eric, like I just had a hard time with that. And the thing is, you really need fat for hormone health. Okay. Now, while we don't believe in setting like macro percentages of anything here, we do know that you do not want to go below that 15 to 20% of your total calories. And I'll show you that with our ranges because, it is linked to lowering testosterone in men, lowering estradiol in women. So this is why, again, we have these 2 templates that we build. We can have one day that favors a bit more fats. Okay. So now we're going to move on to that worksheet that I shared. Let me share my next thing here. How are we doing? Okay. Are we doing okay so far? Is everyone like, whoops, I should have started this oh, this is my same one. Sorry. Hold on. Give me like a thumbs up, or are we all getting it so far? Okay, now we are on the worksheet. Okay. No, why do I keep doing this? Sorry. Okay. Okay, this is it. Okay, here we go. Everybody sees this. All right. So you're going to get a copy of this. Sorry, I should have had this at the beginning. We are going to set up your calories based on what I just showed you, and you're going to see copies of it in here. All right. So first, like we said, you're going to find your maintenance. Now, if you have a piece of paper now, I would love for you to get out your paper and pencil and let's do this together tonight. Like we have time. I want you to walk away tonight with at the very least, having your macros set up so that you can start to build this blueprint. Okay. So you're going to find your, maintenance, obviously, and then just take your weight times 11. And I want you just to write that down. So put your current weight down on your little paper and That's going to tell, and then times it by 11, and that is going to be your calorie amount. Okay. And like I just said here, track your calories like a budget. Like this is like there's your ceiling here, but also means like you don't want to go below it. Like stay within 10 calories of this amount. And once you build your meal plan, you'll never have the problem of like, oh, you know what? I was 100 calories under. When you start to respect how we're going to build it tonight, you won't have that problem. Okay. Now we'll set our protein intake. So like I mentioned, it can be 0.8 to 1.2. But tonight, for the sake of, doing it this way, we're going to just do 1 gram per pound. So you're going to take your weight times 1. That's going to tell you how much it is. Then you're going to take your protein goal, write it down on your paper. Then you're going to take that number times 4. And that is how many calories of your total calories right now we are using towards protein. Okay, so you're going to write that there. And then that's going to tell you your calories remaining. Okay. Oh, you know what? I should have, yeah, so that gives you 1,050. I should have taken your fish oil out, guys. I already see a little issue in my worksheet. I'm kind of sad. So we'll take care of that. All right. Then let me just let that person in. Okay. Oh no, it's right here. Okay, so we've added our protein. Now we're gonna add our EFAs. So let's just assume you're gonna find one that's probably similar to mine or something like that. It's usually one serving ends up being about 27 to 30 calories because it's usually about 3 grams of fat in your fish oil. So we're just gonna assume it's 30 calories, okay? So just go ahead and put that down here. Once you get your own fish oil though, this is how important, like this is one of our next, fish oil, I'd say creatine's probably up there too, but there's no calories in it, so we don't need to build it in there. But this is something that everyone should be taking as a supplement daily. So write down based on your pill bottle how much EPA, DHA it's going to give you, okay? How many calories that will be depending on how many servings, and then deduct that from your other number. So if you had like what I just showed you, I had 1,050, I'm going to take my 30 from it, and now I've got my remaining calories that I'm now going to be able to spend on my carbs and my fats. And we're not even we're building our macros right now, but let me tell you, this is not even the important part. I could care less about this part. I just need it for you to have so we can get to the important part. Okay. Then you're going to set your fat intake. So like I mentioned, we have 2 days that we like to build. You do not need to do this. You could just build one and I'm fine with that. But it is really nice to have this variety. And I really struggled with how to teach this without giving I didn't even really want to give you these strict of ranges, but I have to do that in order to really make the exercise work. But just know this, nothing is ever absolute. You could go to 19% and 31%. You could do, 28% to 42. Like you can play with your diet and see. What you want to overall see in general is a shift in those carbohydrates from the training and off day, and which then always equals more fats on the opposite day. That's what you want to see. But for the sake of the exercise, now we have our protein, we have our EFAs. Now we're going to set the fat only because the leftover gives us our carbs. Okay. So we know that we want it to be between 20 and 30%. So maybe for the sake of practicing tonight, just choose 25. So take your initial calories that we set. So this was 1650 for this person times 25%. You can even ask Google, hey, Google, what's 25%, right? And that's going to give you your calories that you're going to put towards your fat. Okay. Now remember, fat, it's 9 calories per gram. So we're going to take that number and divide it by the 9. Okay. So take that number, divide by 9. That is the amount of fat grams you are going to have in your meal plan for training days or whatever template you're, working on, right? And then the last step there is you're going to take the number that you carried over from your EFAs, from that fish oil, subtract your fat calories, and now this gives you your remaining calories for your carbohydrate.
Okay, I'll go down ahead then.
How many
I'll go
people,
down ahead. So
how many people are at this step now? I can't mute whoever it is, so just mute yourself because I can't find it. Are we good? Like, are we getting to at least getting this training day fat? Because then I want you to go through and now you're going to do your off day fat. So kind of keep these, and then we'll do our carbs in a minute. All right. So on your off day, you would go anywhere between 30 to 40%. Hey, if you love your fats and you're like, man, I love my olives, I love my cheese, maybe you want it to be more closer to 40%. If you're like, no, Amy, give me all the freaking carbs, I'm just going to the lowest, then just do the 30. Okay. So doing that, then you'll get your number, divide that by 9, and that is going to tell you how many grams of fat on your off day. So this person right now that weighs 150, she's going to have 46 grams of fat on her training days and 64 grams of fat on her off days. Okay. Yeah, Chris. Chris, you're a tough one. I think I've talked to you before, and it is, I mean, we'll address when you are lighter in weight. I mean, your goal long term is to obviously try to manipulate your maintenance as best as you can, but you are someone that you're neat, you're walking, your activity matters, and like lifestyle, the foods you choose, like, oh, I feel for you. I really, really do. Okay, so we've got our training day and our off days. Now these remaining calories are your carb ones. So we're going to come to this. Well, okay, here's your worksheet when you do have the printout. You're going to be able to come through and really just be able to plug in all your numbers. Then you're going to come in and fill it in with the rest. So remember, we had that 607 left and the 442. So you probably have something like, it could be like 800 and 500 or whatever. You're going to see a little bit of a shift. You're going to take that number, divide it by 4, do it for both of your days. Okay. And I show you right down here on this worksheet, once you get to print it out or whatever, you'll be able to take your carb calories training day, carb calories off day, divide by 4, and then there you have it. Okay. Does everybody have that so far? So then you would have your final breakdown here. Okay. You would have your calories, your protein, your carbs, and your fat. Now, make sure you keep these numbers and just know that you really want to stay close to this. And once you build a template, you'll have no problem always sticking with it because you're not going to have the issue of, oh, you know what, Amy, I was over by 200. I mean, when I got building, you're going to have all of this set out for you. Okay. So now we'll get to the fun part. So hopefully you at least have some numbers. I mean, even if you don't, you're going to be able to do this, later, but I really wanted to walk you through it, step by step. So now you're really going to get to the part that makes it sustainable. And it really comes down to, and I know this sounds like simple, thinking, but do you know how many ladies have never really paused and thought about how they want to eat, what they want to eat, what their lifestyle's like? You want to know why? Because we have been willing to do absolutely anything to see results. I mean, I was willing to eat cabbage soup and do all sorts of crazy crap to see results. So I don't think I had ever been asked what I really liked or what I ate. It was more like, well, I'll eat whatever gets me results, right? Well, we don't demonize foods here. We don't say things are good or bad. It's just things that we have more and less of. So it's really the things that you just have to keep as absolutes is we do need to hit our protein. So you're most likely going to need to have protein at every meal of your day because otherwise it's going to be hard to get it in. And you need to honor that calorie ceiling, right? Other than that, everything else can be played with, but not on a daily basis. Like, let's set this up for your life. So when I get a new client, like I'll get their questionnaire and I will see like, what they do for work. I'm going to see like what the kind of foods they like. I'll already see like what time they go to bed, what time they wake up, what time they train during the day. And I'm already going to start a little like outline of what I think hypothetically is going to be good for them meal timing wise, because your hormones really, really like that predictability. And there are too many of us walking around that are like, I'm going to wing it. You know what winging ends up being? You end up getting like 50 grams of protein in your day total, and you've missed like 3 of your 5 meals. That's what happens when you start winging it. So it's to first stop and go, okay, number 1, how many meals do I want to eat in a day? Like how many meals do I want to be eating that's going to hold me over throughout my day, right? But also, because some people might be like, Amy, I really don't want 5 meals. Like, I feel like I'll be eating all the time. Okay, well, you can do less. but you've got to be able to hit your protein amount. So if you are someone that needs to get like 180 grams of protein in, it might be really, excuse me, hard to get that in say like 4 meals, and certainly not in 3 meals. And it doesn't mean you have to divide it evenly. Maybe you just have one, maybe you have 4 bigger meals and one meal where you're just topping up with like a protein shake or, some Quest chips or something, right? So it's first deciding, let's see, is there a max amount of protein that nope. It's actually really been a myth. I think Eric actually talked about this on one of our weekly lives. It won't just be sitting there. Now, it will be an unnecessary, like if someone was to hit, I think the threshold was 50 or 60 grams, where then it's not broken down like as a necessary, say like amino acid. So then it's really like an expensive carb is what Eric would call it, so it would be unnecessary. But no, think about people that intermittent fast, they're usually in like 2 to 3 meals, they're still getting in, a heavy amount of protein. But that really needs to be something that you think about as you first initially choose your number of meals. Okay. So based on your lifestyle, select that. And ideally, you're sticking with this all the time. Again, your ghrelin and leptin, your satiety, and your hunger hormones really like that predictability. When we have hunger like off the charts, it's most likely because our lack of like consistency there with the meal timing. Okay. That's one of the first places to fix an issue like that. Okay. Then from there, and now remember, we're just setting up the initial blueprint. Don't see this as I can't have anything else forever. Just wait until I show you all the foods that I have. Okay. It's that we need to set the initial blueprint because it's going to establish the macros for each meal, and then we lock it in. Like that becomes the lock-in. Okay. So I just wrote I went through and I'm like, okay, well, I train in the morning, but I do have my yogurt before. Now it's like I do like a seed shake. But when I first plotted out, it was like, I'm gonna have, my yogurt. And then post workout, I have my protein shake. And then my meal 3 and my meal 4, I call them my meat meals. So I just put chicken and ground beef on here, knowing that I'm going to be able to sub and have every other protein source. But I'm putting I'm just like having it as like the card holder, right? Like this is just to stay here. And then my last meal is my Ninja Creamy, which I know that's not a protein source. And I kind of realized that after I wrote this out, but y'all know meal 5, it's going to be like some protein powder and maybe some Greek yogurt combined with it. So I want you're going to go through the same exercise where I want you to pause and go, okay, I need to have protein at each sitting. Now, maybe you're someone like Amy, I can't even like think of them. You would be surprised as we start to list out some of those things that even people that don't really necessarily like meat, there's things like a lot of the Greek yogurts these days are really actually, they're not tangy and tardy. They taste good. The ratio protein cups are fantastic. All the clear protein. Now we even have, let me see here. These like protein on the go that you literally can put it in your bottle of water, shake it up, and you've got protein on the go. So there's really no reason and no excuse to not get your protein in. You need to see it as such a vital, important part of your nutrition. I know with and I never like to like use and talk about my cancer in a way to like sway people, but I will say that throughout my journey, I have had more doctors, countless doctors actually, are so impressed by the amount of protein, by the amount of just like how serious I am about my nutrition, because it's a healing factor. It is so good for your body. Like now they're finally seeing it in wound care. Like when people have wounds, they'll tell people to increase their protein now because they're seeing healing benefits. So you got to get good at liking protein. I will say the reason why a lot of people skip their protein, and I'll just be real with you, it's because of laziness, because protein is one of the only nutrients that requires, I'd say 75% of the sources need to be cooked. And that comes down to the person not being prepped and not ready. It's why carbs are so much easier. We don't have to cook it. But, your chicken, your beef, all of these things have to be cooked. So it usually becomes like a laziness factor, okay, or just not prepped. So then you're going to plot your ideal protein sources. I left 2 boxes here because you could do your training day and then you can do your off day. Okay. Now don't worry, they're going to turn into meals and they're going to look a lot more exciting. Then I want you to visualize and choose sustainable foods, like things that you like, and don't be afraid to be like, I mean, I want, I have a client that she has an English muffin breakfast sandwich every single morning. So her eggs are her protein source and like some turkey bacon. And then, she was like, I would love to have like an English muffin and maybe a slice of cheese. Great, built it in, right? So start to visualize again, just your blueprint of in a perfect world, what would you be eating at your 5 or 4 meals? Okay. So here I've got I've added more. Remember, I just had my protein source at first. Now I'm like, okay, well, I would have like my little yogurt parfait. Meal two is, post-workout, right? My protein shake. Maybe meal three is going to be my chicken, my sticky rice, and my favorite fat source, like avocado, whatever yours is, right? And then my next, again, I'm eating, I mean, I have such a variety of food, but I'm just having this here as the placeholder, ground beef, potatoes, and olive oil. And then I've got my Ninja Creamy with my peanut butter. That would be like my perfect day, right? So you're going to come through, and I would do it for both your days. And if they're going to be the same, that's okay too, because you can also have same things on the placeholder and we can just shift the macros within that, right? But you really do want to think and don't think that anything's off limits. I see this far too often that they're like, oh, you mean I could have bread? I'm like, of course, like stop demonizing food, hit your protein, and we're good, right? So then you're going to visualize yours out. Then this comes the important part. And this is what people don't do. And they just wait until they every day do their macro tracking. And meal one is one day 250 calories, the next day 330, the next day 500, the next day down to 200. You see what I'm saying? Like we have this all over the place because we're letting our feelings kind of dictate day to day what we're doing, which is just crazy. So instead, you want to consider things like, okay, we ask this on like our questionnaires, when do you find yourself most hungry? Because I'm going to want to make sure that I am structuring some meals around that time. Because of course, you could evenly divide, like Sally could just take her 1,650 calories, divide it by her 5 meals, and it would be, 330 calories. She could divide her 150 grams of protein. It would be roughly, 25, like meaning you could just do it that way. Or you could take a customized approach and really go, okay, well, where do I want to have more of my calories? So for years, in fact, for many years before I really ever did a long-term stint at maintenance, I was kind of afraid to run out of calories. I think I had just done so many years of under eating, honestly, that it was a default pattern of mine of being like hardly eat until like I finally like the floodgates would open and then I would be like bam bam bam, right? So I kind of live that way, which there's nothing wrong with structuring it. Like maybe you wake up and you aren't someone that's really hungry in the morning, and so maybe you just want to have like a shake or maybe just like a small thing of yogurt. And you want to start to spread it where you're heavier at night. Maybe you're like, Amy, dinner rules in my house. Like, give me 600 calories there, and I would rather have smaller meals everywhere else. It's really about you finding a sustainable approach and also knowing like there's some physiological effects as well. So for example, eating a very, very heavy meal really, really late might have an effect on you, may not on someone else. I do eat before bed, but it's not like my Ninja Creamy doesn't feel heavy. Whereas if I was eating a heavy dinner like out and then I went to sleep, like I'll have trouble sleeping. So just keep that in mind as well. Like you can, of course, divide this evenly, but it's important tonight or as you're doing this, and it's really easy, just take the math, go, okay, well, I've got this many calories, where do I want to roughly put my calorie amount? So like what I did here to make it more of a custom approach, breakfast a little bit lighter, so I put 250 there, 300 for my post-workout, my meat meals, the same. Okay. And then my last meal, 300 to total the 1650. Then I took my protein, obviously, where I had more calories, my 400, I put more protein there. And then I just did the same thing with my fats and my carbs, where I just started to split them up that way. Okay. So you would come through and do the same exact thing. Like really decide where you want your, calories, because that is, it's a huge factor with, having that sustainability. Let me see here if I have a question. Um, Now, let me show you how then this essentially is done. So let's say that you didn't have the worksheet. So you're just going to come through and you're just going to write down your 5, okay? Then you might come down and do the math the way I have done here. So this one, I pretty much just divided it evenly, right? Like I just took all 5 meals and decided, okay, it would just be easiest for me to kind of make them, similar, 330, 330, 330, 330, 330. And sometimes that might be better for someone that like, hey, math is not my strong suit, Amy. I'd rather just start them all even, and then you can shift things over time, right? But coming through, setting your protein first, right? And then once you've set up your favorites template, you can start to sub things out. So your template, let's say it would look like, let me open, let me stop share. So your template, sorry. Would, look essentially like this. Like you'd have, your 5 meals on there, already set. You might even have already like your macro amounts on there because that's going to help. And once that's set, even if it's just one food item, then I recommend you're going to go through and we're going to sub things in and out. So let me show you the first simple sub. And this is like once you've built your diet, once you've put those placeholder, protein, carbs, and fats in, now you're going to go meal by meal. So you're going to take that meal. So like when we build my first one, my yogurt, my berries, and my oats, I'm going to go meal by meal and I'm going to give myself an option number 2 on every single choice out of the gate so that I already am not stuck with just this one. So I'm going to show you with our food sub calculator just how easy that is. You essentially, I'll drop it in the chat. Let me. Okay. So here is, okay, that is a link to our food sub calculator. So like I said, once you've already written out your initial one, and maybe you already have like a MyFitness, like maybe you have an MFP account, I would go in there and based on the numbers I just gave you, because you really need to do it at 11 times body weight, you could go pick your kind of titrate your 1 day plan and then come put them pen to paper. I'm a big pen to paper person. You need to come write it all out so that now you have your perfect thing 1 day at your perfect macros. Knowing the perfect macros don't matter, you're going to see in a minute, but you got to set this first one up, okay? Once you set that first one up, now we're going to start subbing. So you're going to go to the food sub calculator and let's say you put in chicken breast. I'll just show you live how it works. Let's see. Fire, okay. So here's the food sub calculator. Let me start over. So let's say that you did put up your, favorite template here, your blueprint of your perfect day. But like I said, you weren't stuck eating those things. And you're like, I know I put chicken on there, but I don't want to have chicken tonight. So you're going to come in here, you're going to find chicken breast or chicken, excuse me. But it is chicken breast. Chicken breast. You're going to go back to that original meal plan you made because you need to have it all, based on the amounts. Oh, okay, that's 100 grams of chicken breast. And I'm going to come back and then I'm going to come through here and I'm going to be able to pick any protein source I want. Now notice, like, let's say I pick this cottage cheese. The beautiful thing about the food sub calculator versus MyFitnessPal is we try to teach you that these little details, like the carbs not matching exactly, the protein not matching exactly, is okay. It's always going to default, our food sub calculator, the default is it's going to match calories and it's going to stay with the same macronutrients. So protein for protein, carb for carb, and fat for fat, and always match calories. Because remember, we have a range. So if we are setting our protein, let's say at 1 gram on our template, we have a range, meaning even if you were to every single meal sub it for something that was like less than, like in this case, you would still be okay. And it's trying to teach you to get a little bit more relaxed on that breakdown and really focus more on the protein and the calorie ceiling, right? And with every macronutrient, I mean, as you sub things, it does the same exact feature. So you could come in, let's say you put potatoes on there and you're like, Amy, I don't want to have russet potatoes tonight. I have 190 grams of them that I built into that initial template. You're going to be able to come through and again, find any carb source. Now, let's say that your carb source isn't in here and you want to know then how many calories, like at a you're at a mini mart and you're like, crap, you know what? I just opened up my cooler and my freaking food is ruined. What am I going to do? I see a protein bar here. How can I make this work in? Well, one, you could come and find out the calorie total of your meal and then you would start to sub it in. But let's say that you're in there and you already have your protein source and now you're like, I have these potatoes that are rotten and now I want to know what I can eat with it. And there's nothing at this place that they have. So you're just going to click on anything in the second button. Doesn't even matter. You could pick the first thing, almond milk, apple, whatever, and hit substitute because what you're going to then now know is the calorie amount that you have to play with. So now you know you're at a mini mart, you've got 150 calories worth of any carb source that you can pick, and it will still be considered a good substitution. Okay. Does that make sense so far with the subbing? Okay, so let me minimize this and go back into my worksheet. Okay, share. So go through and you're going to take that initial template and you're going to make at least one option at every single meal. Okay, so like you'll then have like chicken breast. Like I just put in here ostrich just so I could show you the variety you could have. Instead of the couscous, I subbed it for navy beans. Instead of the cashews, I subbed it for the butter. Now, these are just simple protein for protein, carb for carb, fat for fat. I'm going to also show you, though, how you get to a place where we eventually get, which is our meal cards. Now, I mean, and these are going to be on meal cards as well, but I mean our meal card method and that you can find recipes and have them match up. So now, hopefully, if you're like me, I write mine on cards because I actually am old school and I love having my Rolodex of recipe cards in my kitchen. I really don't like digital, although I am going to show you a digital option. I have on here my original. This was what was on my original template that I designed for myself. And then I went ahead and made two other subs. I just took my chicken, subbed it for the ostrich, took my chicken, subbed it for the sirloin, did that with the couscous and the beans, the couscous and the potatoes, did it with the cashews to the butter and the cashews to the cheddar cheese. And then the key is putting them on these cards so that you have them. All right. And then getting more creative. Once you've created a few sub for sub meals, what I meant by that was like meat for meat, carb for carb, protein for protein, where they just pretty much like this. Then you can start to create substitutions for when you're out of the house, when you're wanting to follow a recipe. And it's very simple, is you're just going to take the total amount of your calories that you have at that meal, and you just need to match 70% of your protein and fill in the rest with what you want. So let's say that your original meal plan called for this chicken, couscous, and cashews. This was the macros on it. It was 509 calories, and I needed to hit 39 grams of protein. Okay. Well, at Chick-fil-A, I then went and I figured out my way to sub it. I got a grilled chicken sandwich. I got a 5-count grilled nuggets. And then I got the medium fruit cup. But if you had like almonds with you or you wanted to have a fat source with it, or maybe they don't have the fruit cup, you could just stack it with this. And then here's the key, writing it on a card, showing yourself that matches up to your meal template. So you're not going back in MyFitnessPal. It's kind of a one and done. Once you have it set in stone, once you have it in place, it's there for you. And then eventually, and this is like down the road, this is what your life starts to look like, and it no longer feels like a diet. These are all things that I have on meal cards. So on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week, I was having a veggie omelet with Krusty's pancakes. So those are my training days. So you see, like that's my training day template. Then I've got my post-workout carbs on my training days. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Then you see all my meat meals. All of my meat meals, the way that I have set up my template, every single one of my meat meals equal 500 calories. And then I have taken it a step further, and I'm going to show you what I created. And this is again, like it's work, and you are investing time into doing these things, but it's no different than the time that you've invested into like MyFitnessPal. And once it's done, you have it. So like for me, like I said, my meat meals are 500 calories. So I've created a 500 calorie document. I share this with my clients. I share it in the group. I will share it with you guys if you want to. I'm actually working on, I have a 400 calorie document. I have a 350 calorie document, because I'm trying to teach people that you really need to start to see this as a lifestyle of things that you can enjoy. I eat everything with my family. So I just started a big document, but like I said, all of mine are on cards. Like I've got my cheese, and this is actually my steak and cheesy potatoes, which happens to be, one of these. I've got, just all of them on here because I do like to have them, completed. I don't feel like I'm going to diet. Instead, we have a dry erase board in our kitchen. The kids plan out the menu. I then just come and titrate it to fix for me. My family doesn't need to see anything different. It is, like I said, some work in the beginning, but once it's done, as long as I match my protein and my calories, I'm good. So coming through this, I mean, how many of you would not want to have and eat things like this and know that you can have these on plan, a taco salad, my chili, my chicken and couscous. Some of them are really simple. I mean, honestly, it might just be chicken, potatoes, and cheese, but there's something about the power of putting out a card and calling it like cheesy chicken. Like there's something in our brain that no longer sees this as a freaking diet, always tracking numbers, right? And then I've taken this even, further. So I've got a ton of, like, anytime I come up with something new, I come put it in my document because I don't do it very often anymore because I have so many things on rotation. Even with Eric, Eric has a meal every day. It's also a 500 calorie meal. And I'll do this Waldorf chicken salad sandwich one day. I rotate that the next day with a tuna wrap, and I rotate that the next day with a turkey sandwich. Every third day, he's having something, different. It never gets old that way. And it certainly doesn't feel like, he's dieting. And then I like to then create cards based on when I'm out and about. So I've got a lot in here with different protein bars. Again, making sure it matches up. I've got Chick-fil-A options. I've got Wendy's options. I've got McDonald's options. I basically have an option for everywhere. So I never have an excuse to say that I couldn't, live this as a lifestyle. Okay. Let me see here. Yeah, can you come cook for me? I'm really not a great cook. This is like really simple stuff. Mine are more just, I mean, honestly, there are so many good TikTokers out there and Instagrammers that there's really no reason that we should not be eating really yummy foods these days on plan. But more than anything, tonight, I wanted you guys to see that it is an evolution. You do first have to have your numbers, and you do need to create that initial like template. And that's going to take a little bit of math. Like you may need to use MyFitnessPal that first time. Okay, I want to have 30 grams of protein at meal one. What would that take to get that? And do the reverse math. Oh, okay, that equals 130 grams by weight. Okay, let's write that down. Meal one's done. And really learn to honor. You're not borrowing from meal one to add to meal two to move over to meal five for later. That's on rare occasion. And we talk about that with clients in terms of like when we do have special occasions, but you really want to get into the lifestyle and the mindset of like, I eat at these times during the day, and these are my windows, and I respect that. And I really try to stay within that window with those calories. I'm not like, oh, well, today I want to go take it over. Maybe if you're trying out a new recipe and you're trying to play around, but most of the time you want to really be sticking to these so that you don't have to worry about making decisions, because decisions on the fly, I'm telling you now, even the most disciplined people will cave, they'll cheat, they'll have, they have great intentions, right? Of being like, you know what, after work, I'll figure out what I'm going to have for dinner. And then they have this hellacious day at work. And you know what they say? Forget it. I'm just driving through Chick-fil-A. Now, if you had my little sheet here, or if you created a sheet, you would go, I can go to Chick-fil-A and I don't have to feel guilty about it. And I can totally still be on plan, right? So hopefully, let's, any questions? How many of you feel at least confident with the numbers like that you've been given? Does it scare you? Do you see that? Now, this is just a starting point. I hope. I mean, stay in the community by all means. Like, stay in our LBC community. If you start following the templates, then come back. We'll troubleshoot with you. You initially want to be using this, this calorie amount no less than 2 weeks. You need to test the caloric deficit and see. Now, if you are thinking of joining Look Like You Train, or you are already in Look Like You Train, you know that in Look Like You Train, we have templates for everyone. So let me see if I can, I forgot about that. Let's see. Templates. So if you're thinking about joining Look Like You Train, we provide you with the nutritional templates. So every round, like once you are in Look Like You Train, you have access to a link to this. And then based on your current weight, you will come in. So let's say that Sally, she weighs 150. She's going to be able to come in here. Now, the cool thing about this is the template is already built for you. Now, these may not be the foods that you like, but at least I've already done the work, like at the beginning of laying everything out. Okay, so these will be done for everyone that is in Look Like You Train. And then we have weekly calls because obviously this was based on foods I like. When I built all these diets, I just took them and titrated them up. Maybe you don't want to even have something like this. Well, that's the beauty of taking this entire plan and just using the food sub calculator and meal cards and creating it, to be your own. Okay. But otherwise, you want to do body weight times 11. Yes, times 11. Um, but doing it on your own, like I said, start at the 11 times body weight, and you need to follow, like, you don't know what you don't know. Like, if you don't test the caloric deficit, you don't know if you're metabolically adapted. You don't know if it's because you haven't been compliant. Like, you don't know if you've been under eating. So you start there. You do it for no less than 2 weeks. And then, Eric will be talking to you guys tomorrow night about like what needs to be happening if, let's say, you're gaining at 11 times body weight. Let's say like that would be a major red flag that he will talk about and discuss. But you don't want to be in the cycle that I was in, which was this. When I hired Eric, I was pretty much maintaining around like 1,300 calories, and I was scared. I was scared to eat more. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was just going to gain weight anytime I looked at food, and I was afraid to, drop my cardio, you name it. I was like afraid. And so what I would do on my own, because I knew better. I mean, I already was like a personal trainer and I knew not to eat this amount. But again, this is why I truly believe like people that go through metabolic improvement phases, you need a coach to talk you through it because it messes with your head. Because the cycle I was guilty of prior to this was, oh, okay, well, I do know I need to be eating more, so maybe I should increase. So I would attempt it. I'd get freaked out the first time I'd see the scale in like 2 weeks and go, oh my gosh, this is too much, which really honestly, it's just like your body has not regulated to more food volume. And again, I wish I would have had someone initially to talk me off the ledge. So then what would I do? I'd abort and be like, no, I can't do this. And then I'd go back to the diet. And maybe initially I'd drop a little bit of water weight, maybe even a little bit of fat, and then I would stall out again. Because again, I'm metabolically adapted. And then I'd be like, so it would be just this vicious cycle. So you don't want to do that. That's why it's important. Once you set up this diet, commit, follow through, keep your promises. That's why you need to pick the foods that you like. If after 2 weeks, one, you can't stick to it for 2 weeks, even based on the foods you like, maybe you need a coach. Maybe you need to come in to Look Like You Train. Maybe you need some help. I will say this, I've learned this because I have coaches in all areas of my life. If it is already a struggle for me to do on my own, I mean, it's certainly, do on my own, it's certainly not going to get any easier over time. So we hire coaches, or we join groups, or we do things to speed up that process, right? We have a lot of ladies in Look Like You Train that are reverse dieting. I mean, it's great to have others that are in the same boat with you, because I have a feeling that a lot of you probably need to go through a phase like that. But start here, start with getting some flexibility in your diet without using MyFitnessPal. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of work, but I'll tell you, the clients that do this, they have the most success. They have the most success because they don't have to think about it anymore. All right. Any questions? I know I tried to do this in like an hour. It was pretty tough. Hopefully you learned something tonight. I know some of you are already in our groups and we always appreciate your support. And if you are new here, like I said, reach out, like post in the group. I mean, my email is always open, Amy at Lean Bodies Consulting. If you're like, hey, I was kind of afraid to ask, and this is the numbers I'm coming up with. Listen, Eric and I are here to help. We really want more people to get away from the macro tracking long term. It's just not a sustainable approach. I'm living proof of it. It is a lot easier to live this way and live this way with my family and really show them that like dieting doesn't need to be restrictive. It doesn't need to be talked about in that way. And they just see no different. We do set up meal plans. Like I said, we do set it up. We set up meal plans one-to-one for people all the time, but we also, like I said, in the Look Like You Train group, I have all the templates for you. So we have like videos and things to help you go through that. But yes, we do one-time diets for people. If someone's like, you know what, I don't need the coaching, but I just really need someone to plug in all the things I want custom. We do that as well. So feel free to watch out. Yes, this is going to be emailed out. It'll also be posted in the group. Chris, shoot me an email. At Amy at Lean Bodies, and I'll get back to you about that. But yes, we will email it out. I will send out the worksheet as well, so you'll have a copy of that. I hope you all take the time to do it. I was excited just to help anyone, have the numbers because the uncertainty will hold you back. Like at least even if you're questioning these numbers, let me give you some advice. Last thing, just stick to it for at least 2 weeks. Because if you already walk into this having some uncertainty, you will sabotage because you will start to doubt and question what you're doing. At least just put your head down. Like, even if it was the wrong method, like you really owe it to yourself. Like I do this even with my cancer journey. I keep my blinders on because otherwise I will start to sabotage some of these alternative therapies that I do because I'm like, well, maybe it's not working. Maybe, just blinders on, stick to it for a couple of weeks and then go from there. All right. Oh, Rexanne, thank you for that. That's so nice. Yeah, we always love this feedback. Thank you guys for coming. We will send it out. I'll have the recording out tomorrow morning. All right. Take care. Have a good night.